Welcome to Witham Sounding Board, a podcast sharing powerful business tips, insights, and trends for those seeking to become a rock star in their industry.
Good day and welcome to Witham's Lodging Insights and Innovations podcast. My name is Lena Combs. I'm a partner here at Witham and the practice leader of the firm's hospitality services team. Today I have with me Daniel Cohen-Damani, who is a partner and the market leader with Witham Digital. And today we'll be talking about AI for the hospitality and lodging industry. Thank you, Daniel, for joining us today and talking about this timely topic and providing your insights to the lodging industry.
Great. Thank you, Lena, for having me, and welcome, everyone.
Well, let's get into it. So let's talk about the history of AI. What is it? Why is it here, etc.?
Great. And that's a great question. And when I talk about AI, I love to always give a little bit of history, right? It may shock a lot of you to know that AI isn't anything new. As a matter of fact, the first discussion of an AI came in the mid 1950s, specifically in 1956. And then the first chatbot, like ChatGPT, was first demonstrated to be working in 1964, right? So nothing new. As a matter of fact, when I was in college in the late 80s, I studied artificial intelligence, understanding the concept. So the concept of AI isn't something new. What's new is what we have seen over the last 5 years. As a matter of fact, it's been almost a year now, a year and a few weeks since ChatGPT was released. And I'm sure all of you hopefully have had a chance to test a technology like ChatGPT. So when we think about AI, it's important to understand why now. What's happening over the last 10 years? What did it happen now? And there's really three reasons. The first one is the availability of machine learning algorithm or AI algorithm. While many of those have been around for almost 30 to 40 years, there's been a lot of science and research done around neural network, how the human brain work, and defining algorithm that most researchers have published in an open source manner, right? So if you want to build an AI system today, you don't have to be a scientist. The algorithm are all here. You need to find the right one that's working for your use case. So that's reason number one. Reason number two, there's a massive amount of digital data that's available. And I say digital. Data was here 30 years ago, but it was not all in digital form. And when we think about the size of the digital content that's growing exponentially, the availability of that data makes AI possible today. And then number three, similarly to the availability of digital data, it's the massive amount of computing power. As you probably all know, AI relies on extremely fast and powerful computer system, primarily using GPUs, right, graphical power units that are used to train model. And there's a massive amount of computing power that's available in the cloud. And if you wanted to build your own AI system, you can rent that capacity on a public cloud system like Amazon Web Service or Microsoft Azure or Google, and you have all that capacity available to you, sometimes very expensively, but it's there for you. So if you combine algorithm, data, and computing power, this is the reason why AI has become so prevalent today. Now, when we think about AI, yeah, exactly. So when we think about AI, it's important to understand what are the type of artificial intelligence that exist, right? You know, a lot of people put AI into one big bucket, but there's different subset of AI. AI is really defined as human intelligence mimicked by a machine algorithm, right? So think about playing chess, right? It's been years since a computer can beat any of the best chess player. As a matter of fact, the game of Go, which was sort of the benchmark of AI, it's been at least 5 years since a computer has become more proficient than a human. And the game of Go was very, very complicated, right? So that is what AI is all about. when we think about AI, there's multiple different type of subset of AI. The first one that we don't talk much about anymore, but it's been around for many years now, is machine learning. Machine learning is a subset of AI algorithm that can parse data, learn from the data, and they make a determination and prediction. Example, preventive maintenance, right? So if you have data on maintenance of some of your system in your hotel, and you have a lot of that data, you can use machine learning algorithm to tell you when is that piece of equipment likely to fail, right? That's machine learning. Machine learning learn on itself. You create an algorithm, right? But you don't give it the step to go to the next step. It learns. And it's using neural network to do that. The second subset of AI is deep learning, which is again a more advanced way of doing machine learning that leverage artificial neural networks. So we're trying to mimic how the brain works to develop and infer relationship among data. So think about facial recognition. Generative AI is an example of deep learning capability, or image classification. So at the end, when you think about AI, it's important to really understand the type of AI. The one of AI that we all know today is generative AI, right? That's what's having the buzz for the last year and a half with ChatGPT. This is called generative AI. AI used to generate some of those capabilities.
So if we back up for 1 minute, you've mentioned ChatGPT a few times. What exactly is ChatGPT for our listeners?
So ChatGPT is a kind of generative AI that is, in generative AI is the fastest growing, highest potential, and really most threatening innovation that we've seen today, right? It's literally everywhere, right? ChatGPT had 100 million users in less than a month. So by the end of 2022, ChatGPT had 100 million users. I don't know how many they have today. They don't disclose the number. But essentially, when you think about ChatGPT and its equivalent, I'll talk a little bit about the equivalent of ChatGPT. Essentially, giving a prompt, you give a question, or in the technical world, we use the word prompt. A generative AI system can generate new content like text, images, audio, or video. So you give it a prompt, and the system, through a deep learning algorithm, will go and find what is the likelihood of, the knowledge that this deep learning network have accumulated, will give you an answer, either as a form of text, or generate an image, or create an audio file or a video file based on a single prompt. And sometimes it's not just one prompt, it's a set of conversation that goes on and on. So the most well-known product is ChatGPT from OpenAI. Although if you've been watching the news over the last few days, it's been a big chaos at OpenAI. I think Sam Altman was fired. The co-founder also left, and this drama is still playing, right? So there's a lot of news around ChatGPT and OpenAI, but OpenAI was the creator of ChatGPT. Since then, there's been a race, is probably the right term. Microsoft, who is an early investor in OpenAI, released their own product under the umbrella Copilot. One of them is Big Chat Enterprise, which is an enterprise version of ChatGPT. But what Microsoft has done is now embedding Copilot or ChatGPT-like technology inside all of their application. So think about you in Microsoft Word and you're writing some text and you have no inspiration that day, and you can have your Copilot next to it and say, hey, help me write something here. And it's doing it directly in Microsoft Word, right? You don't have to go out. It's doing it in the context of a document you're writing, and it could be analyzing an Excel spreadsheet, writing a PowerPoint, or more importantly, answering question not on the publicly available data set, but specifically grounded in the data you own, right? So think about documents that you have in your organization, and you can use ChatGPT-like technology to generate response or text or images based on your specific content, not the publicly available content. Other products include DALL-E. DALL-E version 3 was recently released, which is an image generator, and the list goes on. There's literally hundreds of ChatGPT-like products, some being released almost every day. That makes this space really exciting and also very confusing.
Sure, and I would imagine that there's some security issues in there too, and reliability of data. We've all heard the stories about, things that were clearly just wrong coming out of a generative AI product
Absolutely.
that somebody doesn't properly vet or read. And so you do have to exercise some due diligence, of course, in what it is that you're getting out, right?
Definitely.
And to your point about Copilot and the public data versus private data, I would imagine that's a pretty big issue because whatever you're using, maybe like in ChatGPT, that's all public information, right? So if you put in something that may be meant to be private, it's not going to be private anymore.
Yes, absolutely. And when you think about AI, I think one thing that many organizations maybe are not thinking it through is the need to create your own governance, right? So you have to think, some organization, are pushing back or they express concerns, right? And when you think about, business leaders, right? And many of you on this podcast listening are business leader. You have to think about what are the best practice to adopt a technology like generative AI. What are the risks, right? What are the risks to my business of doing it? But also what are the risks of not doing it, right? You have to think it both ways. And, you have to look at, what are the benefits for my organization, right? Many people come to me and say, or to our organization say, hey, I want to implement Copilot, or I want to use ChatGPT with my data. And immediately what we do is we push back and say, well, let's take a step back and define what are you trying to do, right? Let's understand the use cases, right? The benefit, the return on your investment. Understand the limits and the weaknesses, right? Understand if you want to create a public version or something just grounded on your data, right? Think about what is the impact of using generative AI on the team members of your organization, right? Will that eliminate jobs? There may be concern around that, right? Is there a way to prevent use or misuse of this tool specifically? And I think you have to think about the impact on your workforce, right? There's a training, there's an adoption, and suddenly there will be a concern, right? So, many folks need to take that in consideration as they think about the need for generative AI in their organization.
Right. Fascinating. So with all those examples that we've kind of talked about in the history, how does this technology apply to the hospitality industry?
Yeah, that's a great
how
question.
How could it be applied? How is it being applied?
Yeah, no, definitely, Lena. And when you think about AI, obviously it's going to impact every single industry, right? I mean, you cannot pick one that will not feel the impact, right? Any service industry, any product industry, manufacturing, you name it, there will be impact, of course. Some will be impacted sooner than others, right? I think there's going to be, tasks that are much harder to automate for AI than typical tasks. But when you think about the hospitality industry, think about both internally, right? How can you improve your operation? But externally, how can you serve your guests better, right? So, the first example is AI-powered chatbot and virtual assistants for your guests 24/7, right? And that, by the way, you can implement that today, right? It's not rocket science. And then you can have those bots or chatbot escalate to an agent, right? So you're fronting maybe 80% of the conversation that someone will call the front desk for with a bot. It's not rocket science. It's easy to implement. And again, the ChatGPT technology, which is relying on what's called large language model, are very well trained to take a guest experience book that you may have in your hotel and read that book and answer all the questions that your guests may ever have and take them for a conversation where no human have ever have to be involved, right? And then you can escalate that to a human. So that's one of the power. And then what it gets more interesting is if you can personalize that experience based on who the person is, right? In the hospitality, hopefully you have information about your guests, but you know what they like, you know what they don't like, you know where they've been, and what if you can even personalize that experience to their needs? So round the clock assistance, that's number one. The second is, targeted and more personalized experience to your guests. So I mentioned that in the chatbot, but I think, before someone comes to your hotel, maybe you know everything about them and you can greet them with something special that they feel like you know them well, right? AI can absolutely help with that. You can integrate AI into your smart home technology, right? So voice and gesture control, Alexa like, personal agent in the room, right? That's using, generative AI to do that. And then internally, of course, there's a lot of benefits for the people working in your hotel or business. Think about using AI and machine learning to predict maintenance and needs in your organization, right? Or reducing environmental impact of a hotel, right? And then also using that to look at trends. Even companies are using that now for pricing strategy, right? Because the hotel and hospitality industry have had modern pricing tools for a while. When you infuse AI into it, it becomes even better, right? So lots of application. Think about it internally. How can you make your operation smoother, better, more efficient? But how can you serve your guest in more personalized and self-service ways?
Right. Definitely want happy guests. So we talked about a couple of maybe the security issues and some concerns. Are there any other concerns or any pushback that organizations would experience regarding the deployment of AI?
Yeah, I touched a little bit on that already. I think that there's certainly ethics and privacy concerns, and there's also, workforce concerns, right? So one, business to understand the limitation and the risk, right? While AI is amazing, I think we've all heard over the last year about the term hallucination, right? And I think if I can streamline or in a few words let you understand what a large language model is, it's nothing else than statistics. Now it's statistics on a lot of parameters, right? ChatGPT 4 has over hundreds of billions of parameters that's made in the language model, right? Which means there's a lot of things. But when you ask a question, it's going to go through that neural network very, very fast, right? And it's going to produce a few answers, and it's going to take the one that had the highest probability of being right, which means it's always going to try to give you the right one answer, even if it's the wrong answer, right? It's just inference of language, right? So that's all what ChatGPT is, right? So it's statistics. And statistics, they're not always 100%, right? So you have to understand that. I think accuracy is a problem. Bias is always a concern, right? Because a AI system is as good as the data it's been trained on. And if the data is biased to a certain degree among whatever you define bias against, right? But maybe it's not accurate, or it's giving you part of the story, but it doesn't have enough data to be accurate, right? The last issue is transparency. What's really scary about large language model is if you understand there's hundreds of billions of parameters, it means, and it's self-learn and machine learn, right? So nobody coded it, right? They just coded the algorithm and it went out and read everything on the web and created a huge model. There's no way to trace back. So when it makes a mistake, on a large language model, you cannot trace it back. So there's no real transparency. You don't know why the answer came, right? So it's really hard to fix bias. It's really hard to fix hallucination because it's hard to trace, right? It was all machine learned, right? So all you can do is tweak the algorithm and relearn it so that hopefully it doesn't give you that answer, but it's really hard to trace, right? So those are the ethical and privacy concern. I think the biggest question for all organization is, what would that do for jobs, right? And by the way, we
Certainly.
should think about it today, right? And I think that the big tech company that are thinking in the right way, and Microsoft is really one of them. They think about AI in a way to enhance human ingenuity, and I think we all need to think about AI as a way to enhance what we do, not necessarily to replace what we do. Of course, if it enhances what we do, it's going to make it go faster, right? So there's a risk that, hey, we need less people to do something. But at the end is, let's all use AI as a means to be better and faster and more efficient and more accurate in what we do and what we deliver.
Yeah. So tell me, we talked a little bit about different types of ways the hospitality and lodging companies can use AI. You mentioned chatbots and personal assistants is something that can be deployed pretty rapidly. Are there any other types of systems that you've seen or that can be deployed in a quick manner? I know that there's a whole spectrum of uses, right? So
Yes.
how do we?
Absolutely. And when you think about AI, we all need to fasten our seatbelt, because what I'm going to tell you today is probably going to be wrong in 3 months. And then, there's going to be faster and better way to do it in 2 weeks, right? Because it really is moving that fast, right? There are things you can get started in literally a matter of weeks. I'll give you an example. Let's say that one of your challenges is to make sure that your team members are operating and following your policy and procedure. Maybe you have a book that thick, right? Nobody reads it. It's too complicated.
Yeah.
But
Many words.
what if you had just a simple chat bot that you can give to all your employees that can say, I have a question on the operational book. Ask any question and give you an automated 100% right, I should say 99.9% right answer, right? Why? Because you can use those larger language models that are very large, and you can narrow it down and say only make answer on that book, right? In that case, the large language model, the chatbot, if it doesn't find the answer, it's going to stop and say, sorry, I can't find it, right? Because it's not going to go out on the web and hallucinate. It's just going to give you the answer on the specific piece of content that you're giving to. So that's something that can be implemented very quickly. Similarly, you can do that externally, right? You could rapidly create chatbot that you can push out to your guests, right? Where they can answer 70% of the question that people ask all the time. How do I get to the pool? What do I do this? What's the opening hours? And nobody wants to go to a website. It's easier to have a chatbot integrated into your app, or even a specific app for your hotel where people can ask questions around the clock, right? The third area is in pure operation of your hotel or your business. Think about marketing, right? This is probably one of the function that is going disrupted the fastest, right? Because you can create amazing marketing material, design, infographics, images, blog posts, you name it, using generative AI technology. So marketing, you can use it to create compelling messages and more targeted message to your audience, right? And then rather than spending a lot of time, you can spin up messages quickly. I think the bottom line is any organization that is not embracing AI will be left behind, right? So I'll encourage all of you to think about where to start. I think we can certainly help you. We're working with a lot of organizations in defining the strategy, right? And the guardrails. I think the strategy is one thing, the roadmap is something else, but what are the guardrails? And those guardrails are different for every organization. Like you said earlier, Lena, if you go in ChatGPT today and put confidential data, you have no idea where it's going. It's probably going to be used to train and further train the model, right? So you better be careful. right? But if you had your ChatGPT that was secure and guaranteed not to use your data, which is what Microsoft did with Bing Chat Enterprise, that's better, right? So guardrails are critical, right? Because otherwise, things that are maybe confidential or proprietary will be leaked outside very quickly.
Right. I think that the governance piece is a first step, is really good intel and important for people to consider as they're looking at how they can use AI in their own companies. That it's not just, it's a little bit of the wild, wild west, right? So we just need to stop for a minute, think about the strategy and what is the plan, what's the end goal, and how do we put structure and governance around that so that
Absolutely, yes.
we can be sure it's being used properly. So, well, that was terrific. I really appreciate you giving us the history and some ideas on how our friends in the hospitality industry could use AI. Is there anything else that you want to add to that before we close?
No, I think, like I said,
Yeah.
it's really critical to think about it strategically, right? AI has to be aligned to your strategy, your business strategy, and your business objective. And you can have a corporate strategy without AI incorporated, right? It is changing the world in a scary way, right? There's a lot of
Yeah.
speculation about OpenAI that this shakeup was a result of them moving a little too fast, right? And too fast without guardrail and getting closer to the nirvana of AI, which is general intelligence. We're not there. Some people say it's 100 years. Some people say it's 5 years, likely anywhere in between. And it could be 3 years. It could be here already. We don't know, right? So that the
Right.
scary part is, it's moving extremely fast. So every business needs to have it included and think about it strategically. Otherwise, you're absolutely going to be left behind.
Great. Well, thank you. I really appreciate your time today, Daniel. It was
Thank you.
fascinating.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
If you have any questions about today's podcast, please reach out to us through www.witham.com/hospitality.